What's up, witches? My name is Syzygy and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, it's nice to have you, glad you're here. Today I'll be doing the Q&A video that I mentioned in my last video, so if you asked me a question on my community tab, Twitter, Instagram, or in the comment section of the last video, you should see your question here. A lot of you guys asked a lot of really interesting questions, a lot of which I wouldn't have even thought about initially, so I'm pretty excited to answer them. Just a little bit of a note before we get into it, being that a lot of questions were asked on my previous video, some of them are actually from longer comments detailing personal experiences or containing other kind words. I won't be reading all of them in their entirety for the sake of brevity and staying on topic, but I do want everyone that commented to know that I appreciate them sharing their experiences and saying such nice things. Really warms my heart. It genuinely means a lot. With that being said, I'm not going to delay us for too much longer here. Let's get right into the meat of the matter and dive into our questions. Starting with our first question on Twitter, Sumda asks, what's your have a favorite genre of song or just favorite musical artist in general? Now this question has always been really complicated for me, let me tell you. You don't know how many times I've been asked about what kind of music I like and just sort of clam up, unable to fully describe it because I know my description won't be brief. But now that I've got this question, I'm going to crack my knuckles and get deep into it. I can't actually crack my knuckles, really sad, I know. Now, when it comes to genre, I like a little bit of everything. I think that out of everything, like if I had to choose one, I'm probably the biggest fan of alternative and traditional bubblegum pop respectively. However, I also like rock, rap, techno, electro swing, heavy metal, and so on and so forth. However, I also don't really discriminate by language either. Like, I first started listening to Vocaloid songs, which are primarily sung with Japanese lyrics, when I was 11, almost 12. I first discovered them in mid-2016, right before my 12th birthday, and I'm still a big fan of the medium and many of the producers to this day. Pinocchio P, Kikuo P, Masterworks Design, and so many more were huge inspirations to me and have defined my music taste to this day. Not only that, but a lot of them also inspired my art style too. Though just a warning for those of you youngins in the audience, all three of those producers have some dark themes in their music, especially Masa and Kikuo, so just keep that in mind if you choose to look for them. I also like a lot of K-pop, especially Blackpink, and listen to music in other language like Spanish, German, and especially Russian. As for like specific artists outside of the Vocaloid producers that I mentioned, I am also a big fan of Melanie Martinez, Lady Gaga, Britney Spears, and more similar artists. So yeah, that's the best and most detailed comprehensive explanation I can give without keeping you here for 30 minutes. Now moving to Instagram questions, the Unlocked Void asks, coffee or tea, and if either, what type? I just want to say for the record that tea is hellspawn and I will not tolerate even the smallest drop in my vicinity. Okay, jokes aside, I grew up drinking warm tea because my grandma always collected a metric ton of teapots and would make tea for me and my sister whenever he and I would go over there. So I've had tons of flavors from fruity to herbal, and I've hated them all actually. And fun fact, I like iced tea and especially sweet tea so much less than just warm tea. I just hate all form of tea. Actually, I just hate them all. Oh, coffee on the other hand, I adore. I've been drinking it since I was like 6 or 7, I think, and it's been a pretty big part of my morning ritual since then. I'm like not addicted to it or anything, surprisingly, but I just like it. I like iced coffee, warm coffee, espresso, and pretty much every kind of coffee drink. Unfortunately though, I'm too poor to actually afford espresso stand coffee, so I drink drip coffee almost every morning with Coffee Mate Italian sweet cream in it. Still pretty good though, it's fine. Next up, we've got 4 questions and 1 comment from Adrian Animator. They ask, what is your favorite episode of a series? Do you have any animated crush? Do you like Scorsese's filmography? And what do you think of silly female characters like Osni? Or Asni? I'm so sorry if I mispronounced your character's name. Oh. Starting with the first question, the show that comes to mind for me first is the DuckTales 2017 reboot, and my favorite episode is either Whatever Happened to Della Duck, which was Season 2, Episode 7, or Glomtails, which was Season 2, Episode 22. Whatever Happened to Della Duck for thematic reasons, and Glomtails just because it's hilarious and the intro kills me every time. It's on YouTube, and I would recommend watching it, the beautiful intro, if you haven't. Next question. Do you have any animated crush? So I'm gonna have to go with, I plead the fifth. Third question, as for Scorsese's filmography, I actually haven't seen any of his movies before, so I don't really have an opinion. And finally, I like silly female characters. We don't always need gaslight gatekeep girl bosses. Let's just have some more funny women. SushiCat1009 asks, cats or dogs? And do you have any pets? First of all, I'm a cat person. I love cats, like, a lot. I'm pretty sure I had like a special interest for them or something when I was a kid. I always wanted one, but we never really had a cat. At the moment, I actually have a dog, and his name is Kaiju. He's a half Akbash dog, but also a quarter Great Pyrenees and also a quarter Anatolian Shepherd. Here's a picture of him from the other night after his bath. My baby boy. Next up, Trashhole Enterprises asks, who/what got you into YouTube? Now, interestingly enough, I've actually been a part of the art and commentary community here on YouTube for about like 5 or 6 years now. I was here when it was the DA ranting community, baby. However, I was never actually like an active member of the community at all, besides like leaving a rating on a video occasionally or a nice comment to a creator I liked here and there. I wanted to make videos all the way back when I was 13, but I did not have a microphone or like any editing knowledge whatsoever, or even a functioning computer actually, much less money to spend on those things. Thus, I was never able to start my channel until late December last year. Basically, I was inspired by many of my favorite creators at the time, like Ponder Sprocket, Crowdad, and even more recently, Hopeless Peaches. I liked the idea of being able to get my thoughts and opinions out there on all sorts of things, so creators like those, and also my drive to spew my at the time very awful garbage takes, is kind of what got me into YouTube. I actually wrote a whole Wattpad book of what were essentially video scripts, hoping one day to turn them into some. So like, maybe someday I'll make a video where I make fun of my child self even more by looking at my old writing. Who knows? For the last Instagram question, JackValJack24601 asks, favorite voice actor/actress? Either works. For me, I don't really watch enough cartoons or animated movies to have a favorite voice actor or actress. There are performances that I like, but I've never really followed anyone specific. The most common animated material that I watch is probably anime, and even then, I don't have a favorite voice actor or actress because I always watch subbed anime, due to me disliking dubs of foreign television shows or movies, so I can't really think of a specific actor or actress that I like. Next up, I'm going to be moving on to the comment section of my last video. Sorry in advance if I mispronounce your name or butcher it, but Bijan asks, what are some specific traits you've noticed throughout your artwork? Is there any that stuck with you ever since you started doing art? Of course, it's probably obvious to any onlooker, especially if they're not looking at my Hollow Knight art and instead looking at my art of my OCs and human characters in general, that I have always loved anime and the anime style. Even though my art style isn't like heavily anime oriented compared to some others, you can still see the inspiration from anime in the way that I draw from when I was a kid all the way up until today. I also have always been a huge horror and macabre fan, so horrific themes and gore have appeared in my work since I was young as well. In terms of more recent stylistic choices, my favorite color is purple, and my shading and line art are always the same color of purple in every piece, whether human or bug, which might be interesting to note, I guess. The next question is from Choco Chip Mochi, who asks, do you ever plan on doing any sort of art contests on YouTube or other platforms? And what type of aesthetic or things in art that make you happy? Aesthetic and art can be both answered or one that rather answer more. As for the first bit, I don't plan on doing any sort of art contests at the moment, though maybe sometime in the future. It just kind of sort of depends. Second of all, as I said in the last question, I am an anime, aesthetic, and horror/gore/macabre enjoyer, but I also tend to like pastel goth, Lolita, and gender non-conforming themes to my work a lot of the time as well. Especially when the Lolita themes and the gender non-conforming themes meet. I draw a lot of men in dresses, especially frilly dresses and maid costumes. Don't come for me, it's just one of those things that I like. The next ask by JS9292 reads, and for the obligatory hashtag #SaysGQA, lighthearted question, when is euthanasia a morally good thing to do? Do you think Canada is right to have doctor-assisted suicide be legal? Now, I don't know if this is a political thing, so don't come for me, but I do think that if people are suffering with no chance of recovery, they should have the right to ask for the plug to be pulled in that sense. It's just my personal opinion on it though, and it's alright if you don't necessarily agree. Back to more lighthearted asks, Zuzi Does Art asks, did any kind of media/fandom/artist inspire your art style? If so, what are they? As I said before, I was really inspired by a lot of the anime I watched when I was a kid and teen, but before I switched to drawing in an anime style, I actually used to draw animals, and not furries at first. Instead, I drew a lot of like warrior cats since I was heavily inspired by the book series, which is honestly kind of looking back on it. I also remember being inspired by many artists in the warriors and animation communities when I was young, might be a little cliche here, but Vivzy Pop also influenced me and inspired me a lot at the time, especially her classic Die Young music video. My little brother, no seriously, this is my 11-year-old brother, Cade Wild here, he asks, "Do you think a dog could learn how to paint? Asking for a friend, :3. Caden, if you are asking me this so you can put paint anywhere near kaiju, then the answer is no. Moving on, CJ asks, what is your favorite movie or TV show? Favorite YouTubers? What drawing tablet do you use? Starting with number 1, it's really hard to pick a single favorite movie or TV show, but one movie that I've always loved since I was like 4 or 5 years old is Coraline. Coraline is probably my favorite kid-marketed film of all time. It's got an intelligent, tightly knit narrative, a main protagonist who I related to and still relate to immensely, and stellar animation. I just love everything about it pretty much. As for my favorite YouTubers, I'll probably have to say Pondersprocket again, Your Movie Sucks, and Markiplier. Ponder and YMS because their long-form content is engaging, fun, thought-provoking, and great background noise for when I'm drawing. I like Markiplier for sort of the same reasons as Ponder and YMS because I like to put his gaming videos on in the background a lot, but he's also just been an integral part of my formative years, and I think he's made some really amazing stuff in the past. Unis Honest was one of my favorite channels when it lived. Memento Mori. Finally, as for what drawing tablet I use, I'll just pull up the exact Amazon listing I bought it from so you can all see. I'll actually link it in the description too. I initially got it around Black Friday in 2020 and it was on like a $50 discount, so when Black Friday rolls around again, there you go. Jack Fal Jack asks, if you were to take the political compass test, what do you think your results would be? To be blunt, I really despise talking about politics, so I'll just keep this brief. I'm definitely a pretty liberal person. I'd probably be mostly considered far left, though I do not agree on everything. I'll just leave it at that. Emma and Tomatoes asks, any advice for young artists out in the world? I actually have quite a lot of advice, like too much to just go on a whole diatribe about it, so I'll just share the most important one in my personal opinion. Young artists out there, I want you to know that you should draw and create whatever you want, as long as you don't create material that is against the law in your country or post not safe for work to your socials if you're under legal age. I think that it's a wonderful thing to explore who you are through your art. You shouldn't worry whether or not other people like it or if what you create is deemed cringy or something arbitrary like that. It's important to experiment with your style and create things that you like and that appeal to you. Don't just make things because other people want you to, and don't stop making the things you love because others don't like it for one reason or another. Do what you love is pretty much what I'm getting at here. I actually have probably a lot more advice and more things I could get into, but I think that's better suited to a different video if you guys want to see that, I suppose. On to the next question. Emily Hoover writes, when did you realize you were a Wiccan, and what prompted you to start thinking about it? Now, first of all, I'm actually not Wiccan. Instead, I'm a pagan. It's a pretty common mistake to get the two mixed up since both Wiccans and pagans tend to practice the craft, but they are two separate religions. A similar thing is to how Christianity and Catholicism are different religions, though having similarities, the two of them have different practices, beliefs, and policies. It's a similar thing to Wiccans and pagans in that sort of sense. I started thinking about being a pagan when my mom first told me that she was a pagan and started teaching me about pagan beliefs and the craft when I was about 10. Next up, Cyanide Jam asks 4 questions here. Why did you start YouTube? When did you start drawing? Are you a potato, and how are ya? As for the first one, my answer is pretty much the same as earlier. I am a longtime lurker in the art community, art commentary community, and just wanted to make videos like all of my favorite creators did, pretty much. As for when I started drawing, I can't quite remember like the first time, but I used to enjoy drawing my class portraits in like 2nd and 3rd grade and ended up becoming more serious about art in 4th grade because of things like Pokemon and Warriors inspiring me. Am I a potato? Yes I am. And how am I? Honestly not great, but holding in there the best I can. And here my beloved sister Imaru decided to materialize like a gift from the gods and ask the best question of the video. What do you think of Among Us Balls? I just want to say it now. Among Us Balls in Yo Jaws is the best song I have ever listened to, and if you haven't already had a listen, you should go give the song some love. It's linked in the description. but DeSwaggers, the absolute godsend, decided to add it on Spotify as well. Truly wonderful. Next up, sorry if I butcher your name here, Straw Baby asks, what's your dream vacation and what's your favorite thing to draw? As for my dream vacation, I've always wanted to have a Japan trip where I'll be able to see tons of big cities, beautiful resorts, and fascinating places. I also thought that a trip to South Korea would be pretty fun, and maybe a visit to Hawaii. As for my favorite thing to draw, Little Fork Man. As for the final comment on this video as of scripting, A Bookworm Draws asks, how did you get your username? Which sort of leads into how did you get into paganism? I don't know if that's too personal, no worries if you don't want to answer. Oh boy, the username story is kinda cringe, but I'm gonna tell you anyway. So the syzygy part of it isn't too bad. I'm not exactly sure when I learned the word, but in astronomy, a syzygy is a formation of 3 or more celestial bodies in a straight line. So aligned planets, essentially. I liked the word and thought it sounded catchy and figured that it would be a pretty specific and obscure name that little to no one else would have. As for the slumberless part, and that's where the cringe comes in, oh boy. So I used to be a big fan of a YouTube animator called Twisted Doctor, but before his name change, his name was Sleepy Kink. The sleepy in his username kind of spoke to me. This is not because I'm an insomniac or something like that. I get 8 hours of sleep almost every night. I'm religious about my sleep, man. If I am disturbed, I get murderous. You may think I'm joking, but it's kinda true. The reason why I liked Sleepy so much was because despite my 8 hours of sleep, I would always wake up incredibly tired. My in-person friends, when I actually had in-person friends, always sort of described me as sleepy and out of it, with dark circles under my eyes despite my near-perfect sleep schedule. Of course I would have to walk around looking like I only slept for 2 hours, because of course. Anyway, I didn't really want to just name myself Sleepy Syzygy and be obviously copying my idol, so I decided on Slumberless instead. Since then, which I believe was in 2018 when I chose that username, it stayed consistent. With that story out of the way, as I said before, I started exploring paganism because my mom is pagan. It's kind of just a family thing, pretty much. Whew, now we're finally done here. There were a couple more questions on my community tab, but they were pretty much just repeats from previous questions, so I did not really feel a need to include them as well. With all of the questions answered, I just wanted to thank everyone that asked a question and/or left me kind words. Seeing such kind comments and positive interaction brightens my day and makes me really happy to make videos. With all of that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for making it to the end here, even if you skipped. If you did enjoy it though, feel free to hit the like button and even subscribe to my channel for more videos like this if you feel so inclined. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a nice rest of your day, and don't forget, stay magical.